Hi, we're so glad that you're here joining us for a small group gathering opportunity. I'm Monica Barracks, and I work here at the Bluffton campus with our children and our families.
I'm Daniel Burbidge. I'm Bluffton campus pastor. We are very excited that you could be part of this with us.
So last week we began a sermon series that is called March Madness. Kind of in anticipation of all of the college basketball stuff that's happening right now.
Right.
And certainly we're putting a theological spin on that. But I think today our topic is clearing the bench, and we wanted to talk a little bit sports with y'all.
Yes. Yeah, it's for those that know me, I'm a big sports fan. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, Monica actually is a big sports fan too.
I am not a basketball fan. I have to admit.
Yeah.
We typically watch football and hockey at my house. And so it's funny because as Daniel and I have had the opportunity to talk about the terminology for basketball, I'm not as familiar with it, and sometimes I'm a little confused about what we actually mean.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that in a second. The funny thing about sports is that from being from South Carolina, we don't have a professional team. So for most folks in South Carolina, like myself, we're kind of college fans. And so for the sports that I always like to be into would be, baseball, soccer, but college or particularly football, college football, and also college basketball. Mm-hmm. Now, Monica is from part of the country where they like mostly professional teams.
We
do.
It
is an interesting dynamic, the two differences.
It's funny because when we first moved down here, the first time I walked into a Target, it was like they had a fan shop for the two nearest college teams, and I had never seen that in my life before. It was so bizarre. But yes. We very quickly realized that you have to decide if you like Clemson or if you like South Carolina.
Yes.
And you have to affiliate with one or the other.
Yes.
We choose to plead the fifth, and we don't really care for either.
I've been working on her to like Clemson, but
well, my kids have Clemson gear too, so
that works. Well.
So, as a matter of fact, I actually remembered, now that you're talking about college and stuff, I went to George Mason University, which is up in the Virginia side of D.C.
Yeah, it's a basketball school.
It is.
Yeah.
So, a couple years after I graduated in 2006, they actually made it to...
Yeah, no, they went to the Final Four.
They went to the Final Four. I had to ask Jim. I had to do my research before. That's awful.
Yeah,
because I'm
bad.
telling you, because I really don't like basketball.
Were you there? So you were there when
I was not.
Okay.
We lived there. I did not go to it. Ironically, my parents actually are big basketball fans, since it's the college that I went to, and we lived. I mean, I commuted to school. I lived at home the whole time I went to college, and so my parents were very involved in my life through college, and they had season tickets to basketball games, and they're like crazy about the basketball team, and so they got to go watch all of the games, and it was a very exciting time. We haven't made it back since, but I get why there's a sense of excitement, and it's different.
And it's especially exciting for the small schools that finally get an opportunity, like a Wofford or a George Mason, that have, they're there not because they have guys that are going to go to the NBA next year,
right?
Or as freshmen. Instead, they have guys that have been working and playing forever to get to the point where they can be a real team.
Absolutely.
And with NCAA tournament, both the women and the men. Which, by the way, I was told I did not mention the women last week, and so I'm going to mention the women, particularly the University of Connecticut, because apparently we have a member here that worked there and said I better mention the women's basketball team. So shout out, whatever.
It is National Women's Month too.
It is.
So there you go.
And I deserve.
Comes together.
I deserve being heckled for that. So thank you. But no. So it's all about a team, and,
Right.
and that's the cool thing about basketball.
The other thing too, when those smaller colleges go that are not recognized as much, I feel like not just for the players, but the fans appreciate it in a completely different way.
Oh yeah. Well, it's so funny. When I was at Wofford, we were good if we had like 100 of our students show up to a game.
Right.
Now that they're winning and really playing well and gone to the tournament 5 times, it's like the whole school. It's a school of 1,500 kids, students. They all show up, and it's like I watch the games now, and I'm like, this is a totally, without a doubt, different environment that we ever had, and so it is contagious, and it makes me think a lot about basketball because we just finished Upward with Henry. I was coaching at Upward at St. Andrews campus on the island. We have a Upward program, and this is my second year participating, and Upward's really great because the whole purpose of Upward is to get children, every child, opportunity to play, whether you've played basketball and you're really great at basketball or if you've never played basketball. So I had Henry and Campbell actually this year playing, and I coached both of them, and it was interesting, the tension that I felt, the stress that I felt as a coach, because you had kids that were better than other kids, but you were all trying to give everybody an opportunity to play.
Right.
And if you hadn't given them an opportunity to play, they would never have gotten better.
Sure.
And it makes you think about how so many other sports programs and sports, how we do sports, is that oftentimes we say that we want everybody to have an opportunity. We say we want everybody to grow, but really, in the back of our head, it's all about winning.
Well, it's where you put your emphasis, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And whoever the coach is or whoever the league organizer is, they set the tone and the temperature for what that emphasis is.
Right.
Whether the emphasis is on winning or really developing players.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I think that as a parent, it's I've watched my kids play and not as a coach, and it is really hard when you watch your child sit in the grass period out, whatever, for a very long time when all these other kids are out there playing and all he wants to do is have a little time on the field and have some fun.
Exactly.
There's a really good teaching moments there that are lost.
Yeah, it really, and I absolutely agree. Like Kelly came and watched Campbell and Henry play, and I was more worried about what Kelly was going to do than I was about the kids, because it is. I mean, especially when you have aggressive, kids that are being aggressive.
Sure.
And you have coaches that are trying not to be that way, but they are. Then you have parents yelling at their kids to be more aggressive. Yeah, it's tough watching as a parent, and I always think about that's why I like the Cinderellas of like the basketball world, because in the Cinderella team, which is a team, for those that don't know that terminology, and I'll tell you what that means, it's those that no one expects.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Cinderella. No one expected Cinderella to go to the big dance.
Right.
All right, well, to the ball. Well, in this case, that I like that, because if you look at faith, that's what Jesus really tried to emphasize, is that the big dance or the ball or the grand or life in and of itself should be played by all.
Right.
And that's what he did, and that's what made him so revolutionary in a way.
Well, and not only that, but it's like the ball or the big game isn't the end all, and it's not even the thing that we have to necessarily be striving for all the time, I don't think, in some ways. Like, I think you get so focused on that one thing off in the distance that you forget to live in the moment,
Right.
or worry about what you're doing to lead up to that.
Right. I mean, it's like going back to the analogy of sports, particularly with kids. Practice
Right.
is so important, but for a child, they're all they want is the uniform. They want the experience
Or the trophy.
or the trophy, which apparently everybody gets, right?
Yes.
Yet they miss out on the opportunity to really to really get the most out of the time they have to grow as a team. And the best teams are the teams that practice really, really well.
Right.
And have coaches that are really good at doing that. So you're absolutely right.
You know what I think is interesting as we were talking about this is it strikes me that almost these small groups are kind of like teams of their own.
That's our hope.
Right?
Right.
I
Absolutely.
mean, your time gathering together week after week is like your practice time.
Yes.
Where each player has a different job and opportunity, and all of you are coaches,
right.
I think, along the way.
No, without a doubt. And that's the hope, is that, and it's so cool that we've started this for the season of Lent, is that our hope, at least I know your hope and my hope, is that we hold each other accountable as a team.
Yes.
And that there isn't one person that's over everything. It's instead we're here together to work and to challenge and to get to know each other. And that's one of the things I love about this church, is that we have so many different people from so many different places,
yes.
from so many different ages. And so the hope is that the small group is an opportunity for us to get to know each other, but also challenge each other, and hold each other accountable in love through Scripture,
Sure.
which is kind of what we're trying to do.
Well, and the reality, too, with all the different demographics, is all of us are at different points in our spiritual journey.
Yeah, without a
right?
doubt.
And some of us might have already gone to the Final Four and had that experience, and they can share that experience with somebody who has never even graced the court before.
So one of the things you'll see, and if you've had a chance to listen to this past Sunday or this Sunday's sermon, is that the message was about clearing the bench. And it's really funny that when we were coming up with this, you had a different thought about what clearing the bench means.
I did.
And then I did. It's no worries. This is we're supposed to show real life, right?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. So what did you think clearing the bench?
So I thought what clearing the bench meant is like if me and Daniel were playing against each other and my team was up by a lot,
right,
and it looked like we were already going to win,
right,
that I would take out my starters and I would go down the bench literally and make sure that everyone had an opportunity. All the subs were able to get out off the bench and have some playing time.
Right, and so. But in baseball, for example, clearing the bench means something not completely different, but it's very similar in the sense that it's an emotional thing. Like when you take out your starting and you put in those that aren't starting, that haven't had a chance to play, that's an emotional thing because you're making a point. The other part for where you hear clearing the bench is very emotional when there's a fight.
Yes.
Or, you see it in basketball, you see it in baseball, when the whole bench clears and goes to the court or goes to the field to fight the other team.
Right.
And that's usually where you hear, often like in baseball, that terminology. Another way of thinking about clearing the bench that I think is really what I think about is, and hopefully will happen when Wofford College wins the NCAA tournament. I'm sure everybody's thinking now that you're crazy. But if they win, say they win an overtime match or it's an upset, then what happens is the entire bench runs to the court and they celebrate. And that's clearing the bench. So it really is emotion.
That I was just about to say that is like, it feels like all of those scenarios are touching on different types of emotion, and that's I think that's a good thing to leave them with, is to think about those emotions and kind of and how they play into your life. Yeah,
exactly. And if you look at the Scripture, there are very emotional passages. They're talking about Jesus is talking, and in every passage actually, Jesus is addressing the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and really ultimately all of us as disciples who are following Jesus in emotional ways. So I think we want you guys to look at these passages and ask yourself, how is Jesus clearing the bench here? What is he saying? What is he challenging? What is he maybe criticizing? What is he trying to hold these folks accountable to? And what is he really ultimately holding you accountable to?
Excellent. We also included a story in there from Tony Dungy. If you guys have an opportunity to read it together and maybe talk about the emotions that provokes. And then on the inside of this packet, you'll also see a bunch of questions that should help facilitate conversation. Use those as needed in your group.
Right. And I also want to say too, if you we'd like for you to take some time to make sure you have time to pray together, and that's where your leader can help you, or all of you can really do this, is have a time to pray, and you'll see a weekly prayer strategy that maybe you can do during your small group, but also throughout the week.